Are you just doing a job you're really not that enthused about? Are you just trying to get through the day, maybe pay off some debt, maybe not be broke? Well, you're in luck because today's episode we're going to be talking about is your life's work meaningless? Yeah, heavy. This is the Existential
Heavy
Stoic
burden.
podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Danny?
That's different. It's what we're all about.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of searching for the correct phrasing for this. And
Harder than you think, though, because yeah,
mhm.
very
But
difficult.
I mean, in essence, your job is your life's work.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's what you're
And
putting your time and effort into. That's how you're contributing. If you think of it in that sense of like contributing to humanity or society
if
or
you're just
whatever.
working the average amount, it's a full third of your life.
Isn't that
It's
crazy?
it's it's half of your life that you're not sleeping.
Yeah, and that's like the average amount probably from like the 70s.
Yeah, right.
If you're working the average amount now, it's probably like 50%.
Well, that would
Literally.
be 12 hours out of 16. Yeah, so that would be three-quarters of your life if you're working like a 12-hour shift. Yeah,
It's crazy.
crazy. So,
It is.
anyways, this came from I was having a discussion with a friend at the co-working place that I go to, and he heard something that apparently like most jobs are BS jobs. So there was a poll that was done of a whole bunch of people, and a third of the people said that their job was BS, and then of the remaining people, half said that their work really didn't matter, and then the other half said that it was actually doing something. So like a third of the people in the world think that they're doing meaningful work, and then everybody else just thinks it's negligible or worthless.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was telling you about too that study I had just heard about. It was actually on NPR, and they were talking about. So this woman did studies like about it was focused on Japan and the U.S. and work culture and how like in Japan people like will work till they die, and there's like there's some honor around or whatever. But like she was talking about how bad the systems are and how like the U.S. is very much very close to that, and if not there already. And the interesting thing she said was that she did these intensive studies and found that most of the work is pointless work. It's meetings, it's busy work. It's not even stuff that like, and when she says pointless work, it's like what she meant is like stuff that like is meaningful, is work that like contributes to something, gives you satisfaction, that actually moves something forward rather than just like circling it all the time, or just like, work that's meant to like the pre-work work kind of stuff, like the meetings and stuff. And it's funny,
Mhm.
we've gotten to this culture where like I see so many people, dude, like I'm my partner's mom. I know she works at a huge company, big company. All they do all day is meet. And then it's like they're expected to do their actual job later because they're stuck in meetings so often. And it's like, but the meetings don't do anything. Like it's ridiculous. It's like that's become
Mhm.
like their work. It's absurd.
That's what they have to do at the office is meetings.
Yeah,
And then when they
yeah.
go home at nights and on weekends, that's when they actually have to do the work.
Their actual job. Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
working, you're working 40 hours a week in meetings and then another 20 or 30 doing your real work, which is insane. Yeah.
Yeah, meetings are crazy. I remember like reading maybe it was the 4 hour work week or something like that, where Tim Ferriss back in like 2008, he was saying like do whatever you can to get out of meetings because
They're worthless.
the yeah, I think it was him who said meetings exist just because corporations can't masturbate.
Yeah. That's basically it though. That's a good way to say it, right? Because
Yeah.
they were like the problem with meetings too is like in order for them to be effective, you have to have a clear goal and it has to be achieved. The problem is that most people, and I get it,
So
right?
this is the pre-meeting.
Yeah,
We're just
yeah.
getting coming here to put together an agenda for the actual meeting.
And people
Yeah.
like, I get it too, because like you're at work, like people like goofing off. They like seeing other people, they like chatting, and that's what meetings end up becoming is like a lot of time wasted on BS, and then never because you have a group of people, never being able to make decisions. So it's like without a
Mhm.
clear decision maker, you never resolve anything, and it just gets pushed to the next meeting. You make another meeting to deal with that thing, and it's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
exactly.
it's
So
absurd.
it like I mean I agree with you 100%. Meetings are worthless. But there's also the idea of like are these jobs, even if your job consists of meetings and emails all day and everything, is it actually worthless? Because if it was completely worthless, would it still be there? And I think of this, the way that I was thinking of this was kind of from like the evolution of a business. So like a lot of people think that jobs are these things that the government provides, but it's not. It's something where somebody had an idea, they had a problem they wanted to fix, and other people were willing to pay for the fix for that problem. And eventually, what came out of that was a business, and it's developed, and they've had to hire more people, and then getting everybody on board, end up having meetings and whatever. But like, yeah, sure, maybe some companies need to trim the fat, but if your job was actually worthless, would it still be around?
Well, I think okay. I think your point about how businesses are created and jobs and stuff, I think makes sense up to a point. But like in today's world, we have these mega corporations now that are monopolies that are so huge. I mean, look at some of these companies, how many people they employ, right? I mean, there's no way they can know what everybody's doing, first of all. And second of all, they're so huge that they have these very hot, heavy top ends, right? Like admin groups, right? Of like, executives and blah, blah. And I think that's part of the problem is they're so big and there's so many
I don't want to
decision
blame
makers.
MBAs
Yeah,
and the
I do. I
1980s and
will blame,
cocaine,
yes,
but
it's
that
mostly
was the
that.
beginning of the end.
But I think also to your point though, like, and looking at this also differently is like, is any of our work meaningful? I mean, because I think we make whatever we're doing, we make it meaningful, right? If it has a meaning. But like in the larger scheme of things, is it meaningful? I don't know.
What, there's that parable of like the guys building the church. How there were like two or three guys building a church, and someone asked one guy what he's doing, and he's like, I'm making a buck 25 an hour or whatever. The other guy says, I'm I don't know, laying brick. And the third guy says, yeah, the other guy says, I'm building the best cathedral in the world. So wouldn't it then depend upon your interpretation of it?
Well, that's what I mean, right? That's the problem is that like things only have meaning insofar as we give them meaning, right? So I think like, you can look at your job, like say like, imagine I had a job that I thought was meaningless and I hated, but it provided well for my family, allowed me to live the life that I wanted. Well, then maybe that job's meaningful because the
What?
job itself
Yeah.
doesn't matter in that case, right? What matters is what I'm getting from the job that matters.
Well, that's the one thing that I was thinking about because, I look back and I had some jobs that I really, really did not like. And
Yes.
it was like painful. It would make me like sick every day to go to work, but I did it because I kind of had a vision for where I would be in the future. And like that was what was necessary at that time for me to get to this future point. And you know, now where I am now, I enjoy what I do, but like if I hadn't had done that job, then I probably wouldn't be here. So as meaningless as that job was and as terrible as that job was, maybe it actually has meaning because it got me to here.
Well, because you gave it meaning by having a higher order goal that you're trying to achieve, right? And no, but I think that can be a really powerful way to make a bad situation meaningful, is use it, recognize it as a stepping stone to get to something you really want. Because that also keeps you motivated in getting out of it as fast as possible, right? As soon as you can. Because I feel the same way. Like I remember when I started teaching way back, like I found it very meaningful because I really like teaching, like working with the students and stuff. But over time, it lost its meaning because of universities and because of the way they're run and all this stuff. And like, while I still liked engaging with the students, like it just wasn't enough anymore. But then like transitioning, like I feel so much better now. And that was the same thing I did. Like that, I used it as this, kept doing it and it had meaning because it enabled me to do the other things I wanted to do. Right. And I
Mhm.
think that's one way that we can make things meaningful is by recognizing like what they're doing for us and the value they have for us. It might not be for everybody, but for us. And I think that's the best kind of meaning you're going to find in anything.
Mm. So, what recommendations do you have for people who might be listening who feel like their job, their life's work is meaningless? What do they do?
I think if you feel that way, first thing is like start thinking about like what you would want to really do. I think that is like people don't give themselves enough credit, I think, for that we can really do anything. And if you're really passionate about something, start trying to do it, but recognize that like to do it well, it's going to take time. And so, but like we just said, you can use your current job that you hate as a means to start maybe learning the stuff that you need to, or setting things up, or preparing for whatever you're going to transition into so you can get that other thing off the ground so that because I think one of the worst mistakes people make is they like, I hate this, I'm gonna quit this and just start this thing. But
Oh,
then you
that's
have
worse before you have an exit plan. It's
right
like
because
jumping out of the plane before you have a parachute.
you have no
Yeah.
exit plan, and also it just your stress levels go skyrocket because now you don't have the income, you don't have the
Hmm.
safety net or anything. So I think it can take longer by staying in the current job. But I think it provides for a much better ultimate like end, to it. Because we both basically did that. And I think
Hmm.
it was a very effective way to do it where like, you see more value all of a sudden too in that thing that you hate because now it's this means to a better end, right? I think that makes it so much better. So I think that would
Yeah.
be my main recommendations. Like first figure out what you actually want to do. Get clear
Hmm.
about that. That might take time, you know, and then come up with a plan. Like, if this is what I want to do, what do I need to do? What do I have to learn? Do I need a business plan? Like, whatever it is, right? Like, do I need
Hmm.
certifications? Do I need this, that? And start figuring out how can I do that in the most effective way now with the least amount of stress.
Hmm. That's great. Yeah, I heard a good brainstorming question for like figuring out what you want to do. Because I think a lot of people get stuck there where they're like, I know I hate what I'm doing, but I just don't know. Like, I don't know. Everybody else has such clear ideas what they want. And I was here too. When I was a kid, I hated that. Like I had a friend who was a brilliant artist,
Oh
and I
God, I know,
hated it that
right?
like he was so good and he knew that was what he wanted to do.
It's
And I
like
had
it's
another
like
friend
they
that
were
was like,
born and slid into this thing that they were just
yeah,
great at. You're like, you suck.
he was like a semi-pro becoming professional mountain biker, and that was just like what he loved to do and what he knew. And it made me so angry because I was so confused. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So, anyways, this question that I heard is a great brainstorming question. It says, if I had infinite money, already traveled the world, had no fear, and didn't receive any recognition for what I do, what would I do or what would I create?
Oh, I like that. It makes it all
Yeah.
about you. Gets rid of all the other crap.
Right.
Yeah.
It takes care of like because like whenever you start brainstorming, people be like, "Well, I don't have the money, and oh, and I want to travel the world clearly." And it's like all these objections that you would encounter if you didn't have those, if you didn't have any fear, if you didn't get any recognition, all those things are gone. And then you still had to live and you still had to do something. Well, what would you do?
The other thing too I like about that also is like I think one of the things people face too when they do realize that like say they hate their job and they want to change to something they love, they're going to get pushback from people that they know. And that is true
Mhm.
because most people don't understand that. Like if you like they might think that you're in a good job or they might think that you have a stability or whatever, and they're going to push back against that. So sometimes it's
Or
better
who are
too to
you
like
to think you can follow your
yeah,
dreams?
exactly. Like we
Yeah.
can't. Who the hell are you? So like I
Yeah.
think it's good to figure it out, come up with a plan, and start doing it without telling anybody. Because
Mm.
that initial phase you can always do, learning on your own stuff. Nobody's gonna begrudge you for that. You can get started, and then you're in a much better position to transition from like you have the stuff ready. It's not just like I have this idea that I'm gonna do, but I have no way to, no means or understanding what it is. Because the other problem is too, I think a lot of times we have an idea of what we want to do, but when we start learning about it, start doing more, it's gonna change. And that gives you that room to kind of figure out precisely how you want to go about it before you kind of pull the trigger. And I think
Yeah,
that can be
because
very helpful.
it takes time. Like, and it's going to take way more time than you actually think it's going to take. Like, probably most things are going to take 5 years. So, like,
To really materialize. Yeah.
yeah. So, like, to quit your job now for this thing is just foolish because then you're out of a job and then you have to scramble to find some new job. And then you'll probably just lose all vision for everything you wanted.
But there's
Yeah.
so much you can do in the meantime, right? And like I think that's the other thing. I remember that book, what was that? Man, I can't remember the title right now. Damn.
Yeah.
Um,
I know which one you're thinking about, but I don't
it
remember
was the one about
the title
the
either.
business one about problems and solving the problems,
Yeah.
whatever. But
Uh-huh.
he did some anecdote stories, and I really like there was one where he was talking about the guy who like he was trying to start his own business, but he had a job, and so he'd get up every morning like an hour before work and spend that time working on getting this new thing going. And I was like, that's
Hmm.
a great idea because like we all think we don't have any time, but we do. And if you really, really want to improve your situation, you can find that time, even if it's an hour a day or and
Yep.
then a couple hours on the weekend or something. Like just carving out that time and say this time is specifically for this my goal of getting here. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes to put that time in and make it work.
Yeah, and plus you get to discover if it's something you even want to do.
That's
Because
yeah.
how terrible would it be to like uproot your whole entire life to do something and then find out you don't even want to do that?
Well, you know what's funny? This always cracked me up too because we live
Start,
longer
was it
now.
Start from Zero?
Yes, there you go. Thank you.
Okay,
Star from
yeah,
Zero. Yes,
yeah.
yeah. Great book. Everybody should read it if they're in this position because I think it's very empowering, but also very clear too. It gives you a lot of help in that respect and helps you kind of, I think, get a clear idea too about what you actually want to do. But I think one of our biggest problems too is like, we live a lot longer now. We work a lot longer. Like, dude, people used to work like 20 years and retire. That is nothing
And
now.
they used to die at 30.
Yeah, I mean, right? Like, I mean, you can have multiple full careers now in your life because most people work until they're like, what, 60, 70, 80? Like our presidents,
Mhm.
they were like
And
100.
some people have to keep on working because they just don't have
Yeah,
money to retire.
exactly, right? So, like, you might as well try to do something that you really love because that makes it way easier to do and way
Hmm.
better, right? You're happier because you're doing something that you enjoy is meaningful. And I
Hmm.
think that matters. So, like, one, and then the other thing is like, we're forced to make these decisions when we're young in college, early on about what you're going to do the rest of your life. And it's like, really, it's a stupid system because you're not mature at that time.
Hmm.
Most
Yeah.
people don't have a clear idea. And then you're kind of pigeonholing yourself in this
Hmm.
way. And most people don't realize that you did it before. You can restart again. It's not that hard to learn something else. You have all these skills, all these things that you gained over your life already. You can leverage that and,
Hmm.
get there.
Yeah. I really like kind of touching on that. I really like Jim Carrey's story about his dad, where he said his dad could have been a great comedian, but he never believed that he could. And so he went off and got like an ordinary job and pretty much regretted it the rest of his life. And so he goes on to say that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
Yeah, right? Because like what's the worst that can happen? It's like I think about this all the time. Like I'd rather at least fail and try and not regret that I didn't try it. Right? Because that's
Hmm.
like the worst thing is like just always thinking about something but never doing it is that's gonna be, when you're dying, that is gonna be prime, right? In your
Yep.
head.
You're gonna be like, I messed up everything
Yeah.
because I didn't do that. Yep.
And I always tell myself too, like as far as we know, dude, we have one chance.
Hmm.
Like you might as well just try to take advantage of it and try to at least make it as best as you can. And
Hmm.
that's going to mean taking chances, but you can take those chances and you can do it in a way where you minimize the risk at least a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So there you have it.
nice.
The answer to the question, is your job worthless, your life's work meaningless, and what to do about it if it is. So if you enjoyed that, we have tons of videos, hundreds, hundreds of videos on YouTube, podcasts on your favorite podcasting service. I mean, you could
We do.
listen to us straight for days,
Literally,
months maybe,
days. I don't know.
months
It's a
maybe.
lot. It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Anyways, if you enjoyed this, this is the Existential Stoic Podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
Later, Andy.